Guys, it's an absolute pleasure and it's a warm welcome to introduce a band from America. It's a punk band called Anti-Flag, and I'm speaking to the bass and vocalist Chris. Good morning from Australia. Chris, how are you?
Very well, very well. Good morning to you. The sun's just setting here, my friend.
Yeah, and I gotta ask, well done with the new album. It's coming out to Australia very, very shortly and all around the world. It's called American Spring, that will be released on May 29th, and it'll be the first album to be brought out under the launch of Spinefarm Records and Caroline, Australia. This is a debut for you guys. Are you guys excited for this album launch to be coming out?
Yeah, very much so. It's a record we worked harder on than any record we've done in our band's life. And honestly, we've been a band for a very long time. This is our 10th record, and we had a real conversation amongst ourselves about whether or not to proceed making new records. You know, when you have a catalog that you could tour the world on, does it make sense to muddle around with that and maybe take the risk of complacency? And I felt like the trajectory we were on for this, was a pretty complacent one. So we broke out of kind of the rut we were in. We had a lot of personal turmoil go on in the band, and the amount of political fodder for a band like Anti-Flag in 2015 seemed outrageously high. So we put our nose to the grindstone and made what I think is our best record ever.
Also, there's a bit of history about your band as well, that with the way that punk has been originalized, there's always been a form of a political or some type of a statement with their music genre. That's exactly the same what I hear from Anti-Flag. Is that true for you guys, that there's always a message in a song when you bring out?
Yeah, absolutely. We feel that the music we create comes from a very specific place, you know, because we're from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which was a working class steel town, and all the steel mills shut down and moved overseas, and it really politicized the city, and it really politicized our upbringing. So that really has a lock and step kind of music and message thing that we deliver. And then you extrapolate that to our favorite bands being The Clash and the Dead Kennedys, both of which were politically focused punk rock bands. That's you make that like being the band that we are. And you know, furthermore, I believe that punk rock isn't necessarily a music genre. It's an ideal, and it's something that we live for. It's to live with empathy. It's to live with compassion for more people than just yourself. So that's why you see so much of the music that comes out of this punk rock scene be politically leaning.
Are you also thrilled with the way that the younger generation has mainly connected with the music today? I mean, the young generation over the years, like from the 70s onwards, have always connected to music. But do you think it's more so with today's society that the younger generation is more connecting to the music now than ever before?
Well, I think that young people in general have more time in their lives to worry about politics. And the way that our societies have been shaped, they've been shaped to make people become more centrally focused as they get older, especially here in America, where there's not private health care, and there is private health care, and there is a university. It's not socialized as it is in many places around the world. It's a scenario where if you want to go to college when you're 18, you know you're going to be faced with $60,000 in debt. And that makes you start worrying just about you and stop worrying about other people in the world. So I think that's where you see this disconnect happen between people of a certain age and political ideology, or even just music and art in general.
Yeah, it really does. And what really amazes me about this album, American Spring, is the album cover. Especially, you have the front cover of a lady wearing a veil type of thing with a pink thing on it, and on the back of it you have American Soldier with a bit of pink on the machine gun. Was that always going to be the artwork for this album?
Yeah, it really was. When we knew we're going to call the record American Spring, we wanted it to be a challenge of perception of violence and nonviolence. And where we're from, there's a large portion of the population who live in Middle America, exclusively watch Fox News, and if they see a Muslim woman like is featured on the front of the record cover, they think that they're being terrorist, or they think suicide bomber, or they think something that isn't necessarily the case. They don't think human being first. Much like many people in the punk rock scene, or people that call themselves the left wing or whatever, they react the same police officer or an American soldier, where they think this belief of baby killer or authoritarian or oppressor. So we really wanted to challenge the way people look at each other and say, you're not immune to prejudice, you're not immune to knee-jerk reactions, so take time and think about them so that we can begin to live above them. And the exploding flower that you talked about when you say the pink stuff, that to me is a really great representation of something that is not violent in any way, shape, or form, but leaves the emotion of violence.
Yeah. I want to ask the story about the latest single that's off the album, Fievel World, that was premiered on the 31st of March. Just give the fans a bit of a rundown of the story behind that song.
Yeah, that song's social commentary on what we believe to be many failures of the Obama administration. We were right there in Washington, D.C. at the inauguration of Obama for the first time in our band's life, not necessarily as protesters. We were there in support of this really monumentous movement in America that had elected its first ever African-American president. And that was something needed of applause. So when you extrapolate that into 6 years of Barack Obama's presidency, and you see this president who was elected as the anti-war president use drone strikes more than any other president in history, have the gap between rich and poor be at its highest levels ever, it really led us down this path of the things we're perceived as truth aren't necessarily truth. So there's this story behind Fievel World.
I gotta say this. This is just an amazing album that's right through the whole start to finish as well. But I gotta ask, how long did this album take to put in production, like the writing process, and then going into the studio to master it and to mix it all up? So how long did all that take place?
Yeah, it was around 2.5 years. And by the time it comes out, it'll be about 2.5 years from beginning to write, dealing with our own personal lives while writing, dealing with feeling from things like the Mike Brown verdict, and dealing with things like the drone strikes that I had aforementioned, and dealing with the great divide of rich and poor. And then there was a month and a half of rehearsals in Los Angeles and a month of recording. We had a studio inside that really kind of chipped away at that barrier that you sometimes get when you're in a fancy studio, and you know time is money, and that can often lead to rushed performances or less relaxed performances. So it's been a really long, really arduous process for us, but like I said at the very beginning, this was record 10 for a band that's been together for 20 years, and we wanted to make it count.
Are you guys thrilled with the reception you got so far just by the single itself at the moment?
Well, I mean, it's one song, and we really don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket. You know, we wrote 14 of them, and we really want to get them out. So
Yeah.
I'm excited now that people like yourself are getting to hear the whole album in its entirety, and every day we get closer to it comes out the 22nd in Europe, it comes out the 26th in the States, the 29th there in Australia. Every day we get closer to that, we get a little bit more excited, because we really just want people to see what we've been working on, where our heads are at, and to know where Anti-Flag stands on a lot of the things that are happening around us.
You guys are also hitting the road very shortly with this album as well. Are you expecting many things from the crowd at all?
Well, for us, it's always about that celebration of a moment in time where people are free to be themselves. So whether we play in Perth or Sydney, or Brisbane, or whether we play in Pittsburgh or New York or Los Angeles, we always take a moment to reflect that everyone is here, everyone is free to be who they are, regardless of whether they're male or female, straight or gay, transgendered, black, white, rich, poor. None of that matters. All that matters is we're alive and in this moment together, and we have the same empathy, and we have the same hopes, and we have the same belief that these moments are too few and far between. So the reception has always been a celebratory one whenever it comes to an Anti-Flag show, and that's no different around the globe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so great to see that a band that brings out an album can also go straight out on the road to market it somehow in another way. And it's also good to see that younger kids can go there to the shows. I know there's not a lot of all-age gigs around, but it's a little bit of a blend somewhere. In some cases, there'll be an all-age gig. Some there won't be. But it's good to see that the kids do go out there when they can.
Yeah, I mean, I would actually argue that Australia is one of the few places that it really hinders the all-ages thing from happening. And it's one of the things that we try to do when we come to Australia is play the matinee show that's all ages, and then do the 19-plus show in the evening, because we want everyone to have an opportunity to hear these songs and to see our band and to be a part of this community.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. All right, guys. American Spring is coming to Australia on the 29th of May. It's the very first time, as I said at the top of the interview, very first album to be released under Spinefarm Caroline Australian Records. And Chris, one last thing you'd like to say to the fans down under?
Yeah, we're hoping to come there by the end of the year. Australia is one of our favorite places to play as a band, and we will undoubtedly visit your country on this tour for the American Spring Records.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, there you have it. Anti-Flag are going to hit our stores very shortly with their new album, American Spring. Chris, it's all the time we got for, but I want to say thank you for joining Blood, Sweat and Metal.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Thank you. See you later. Bye.